Have you ever believed in love at first sight? Some people laugh at it, some people dismiss it as a fairy tale, but sometimes life writes stories that not even the richest, most powerful person could plan. And if you stay until the end of this story, you might just believe in it too. Before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe, because stories like this will touch your heart and remind you of what really matters in life. It all started with a man named Daniel. He was not just any man, he was the CEO of one of the fastest growing companies in the city, a single dad raising his little daughter all on his own. Daniel had everything most people dreamed of: wealth, respect, power, and a future that looked unstoppable. But what people didn't see behind the success was a man who carried an emptiness in his heart. His wife had passed away years ago, leaving him with a newborn baby in his arms. Since then, Daniel's world revolved around his daughter, Ella. She was his sunshine, his reason for waking up in the morning, and the only person who saw him not as a CEO, but just as Dad. His friends often teased him about being alone. They would tell him he needed to move on, that he couldn't raise Ella all by himself forever. One evening, his closest friend insisted he go on a blind date. "If not for you," the friend said, "then at least for Ella. She deserves to see her dad happy." Daniel resisted at first, saying he had no time, that his heart wasn't ready. But finally, for the sake of his friend, he agreed. "Fine," he said with a sigh. One blind date. But just one. The night of the date arrived. Daniel wore a simple suit, nothing too flashy, though his presence alone carried the aura of a man used to power. He arrived early at the little cafe his friend had chosen, expecting to meet some elegant, wealthy woman who was likely interested in him only for his name and position. But when the door opened and his eyes fell on her, his entire world stopped. Her name was Lily. She was not dressed in diamonds or designer brands. Instead, she wore a simple dress, one that had clearly been worn many times before. Her hair was neatly tied back, and she carried herself with a quiet grace that needed no embellishment. She worked as a teacher at a small local school, living a modest life, earning just enough to get by. She had no idea who Daniel really was, no idea he was the CEO people whispered about in magazines. And maybe that's why she didn't put on a mask. She just walked up to him, smiled nervously, and said, "Hi, are you Daniel?" That first smile broke through the walls Daniel had built around his heart for years. He didn't know what it was, but something in her eyes felt honest, real, untouched by the world of money and power he lived in. For the first time in so long, he felt like he could breathe. They talked for hours, about small things and big things, her students, his daughter, life, dreams, and heartbreaks. Lily shared stories of struggling to pay rent, of working 2 jobs just to keep her mother's medical bills covered, and yet, through all of it, she laughed. She laughed with the kind of joy that came from strength, not from comfort. Daniel listened, completely captivated. He realized he hadn't told her a single thing about his wealth or his company. He didn't want to. He wanted her to know him, not his title. When the cafe closed that night, he found himself asking if they could meet again. Lily hesitated, her life was complicated, and she had no time for games, but something in her heart whispered yes. Days turned into weeks, and soon Lily met Ella. That was the true test. Ella had never warmed up to anyone her father dated before. But with Lily, it was different. The moment they met, Ella clung to her hand and said, "Will you read me a story?" From then on, Ella adored her. It was as if fate itself was weaving their hearts together. But love stories are never that simple. Daniel's secret couldn't stay hidden forever. One evening, while they were out together, a business associate spotted him and addressed him loudly as Mr. Harrison, CEO of Harrison Enterprises. Lily froze. She stared at him, confused and hurt. You're that Daniel? The CEO everyone talks about?" He tried to explain. He told her he didn't want her to see him as just a bank account, that he wanted to know if she could love him without the title. But Lily felt betrayed. She had opened her heart to him, shared her struggles, and never once imagined he was living in a different world altogether. "You should have told me," she whispered before walking away. The days that followed were painful. Daniel felt the crushing weight of loneliness again, but this time worse, because now he had known what it felt like to truly connect with someone. Ella asked where Lily was, why she didn't come around anymore, and Daniel had no answer that didn't break his heart. Lily, too, was torn. She wanted to believe in the man she met at that cafe, the one who laughed at her stories and held her hand like she was the only woman in the world. But the thought of their different worlds kept haunting her. Could someone like her, living paycheck to paycheck, really belong in the life of a billionaire CEO? Weeks later, something happened that changed everything.